Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the August 2018 Space Association Australia meeting. Thanks for coming out tonight. Got a really fun night tonight for you, and my name is Peter. I'm the President of the Space Association. For those who don't know me, Michael Abdullah, Vice President over here, and various other committee members and functionaries make a look at things work. Welcome. How are you? So so that's tonight's meeting. I just wanted to make a quick mention. For those who do or don't know, we are sort of partnering with the RMIT Space Technology Association, and they have been very kind and gracious to enable us to use various venues at the RMIT. And so we'd like to extend a thanks to them, and we'd also like to congratulate the new president, Sean Sampson. Apparently there was a big coup last week. There was a vote of no confidence. There was a constitutional crisis, and eventually Sean came out on top, and James has been banished off the democracy there. It's a bit bloody. Anyway, thanks again, gentlemen. So, just to run through what's happening tonight, we have a little bit of information about what's happening around town, things that the association is involved in ourselves. Then we're going to move on to our feature event, feature presentation with Igor Rozenberg, our resident Russia space flight expert, who's going to be talking about spaceports in Australia. So that'll be fascinating. Then we've got a bit of a break, take a break, have a drink, have something to eat. I urge you to go and say hello to someone you haven't spoken to before, haven't met before, introduce yourself. And you've all got the same general interest, so you'll find yourself with an interesting conversation. Then we're going to go to our space news. We've got two parts of our space news tonight. The first part is with Angelo de Grazia, and it's a space industry update. And then we're going to have a Planetary in Space tonight's update with our veteran correspondent, Andrew Rennie. Also is the producer and presenter of the Space Association's own radio show, The Space Show. For those of you who haven't heard it, it's on 88.3 Southern FM every Wednesday night on at 7 p.m. And it's also streamed live and podcast. Get all your news there. And then we're going to be kicked out of here at 9 o'clock tonight. So that'll be the end of tonight's festivities. So the first thing up, I'm not sure whether people are aware of Astrolight, which has been this annual festival run out at Scienceworks. In this particular picture, it was taken a bit of rain on that night, but anyway, it's usually a very good night. I haven't been to one myself, but we've been invited as partners to be as part of this event. The event itself is going to have some really interesting people. Andrea Boyd, for those who don't know, she's an Australian who's working at the European Space Agency as a mission controller on the ISS, and Dr. And then we've also got Naomi Mathers, who is going to talk as well. She's a really interesting person. She was, when I first met her, she was running the Australian Space, Space Technology Education Centre, and she got that basically up and running from the ground up. She then went off to work with ANU up in Canberra on that space environment test facility that's been built up there, and now she's off to new ventures, some global consultancy on business practices. Anyway, she's a fascinating person. Now, space. Is this screensaver flash?
No, it shouldn't be screensaver, right?
This is a resolution. The Space Association is going to be the Astrolight Festival. There'll be a number of things. We've got a presentation desk. There's going to be a whole bunch of presentation desks on different things, Astronomical Society, various other groups. We're going to have presence here. The Space Association will be there as well. We're going to have a bit of information about our group, some model rockets, some videos, and actually a model rocket engine that was used on our V2 that was launched a couple of years ago. It is a chargeable event, so if you want to go, you have to go to this event by a museum tour, and that's the price of it. And I think they've got telescopes and all sorts of things here, so it should be quite a fun night. So that's on Saturday, the 8th of September from 6 p.m. We're going to be inside. I just saw this today, it came through today, so I thought I'd put it in here quickly. The Royal Aeronautical Society, with whom we've had a long and very collaborative partnership, I've got a presentation on with people from La Trobe University and their collaboration that they have with the German Aerospace Centre. And they've got an instrument that went up on a Falcon 9 rocket, which is going to be activated and be used to monitor environmental disasters, etc., and climate change across the world. So it's going to be a talk at the Royal Aeronautical Society. It's actually going to be at the Engineers Australia building in 600 Burke Street. Now, I don't expect you to write that Eventbrite address, but if you just do a search on Eventbrite with that title, you'll come up with it. And I believe that the fees are $32 for non-members. Actually, I think it's $30 plus fees, so $32.50 something like that. But that should be quite interesting. That's on the 19th of September. So people on the board that will be quite interesting. And finally, as far as things around town, Living Universe is being screened at the IMAX theatre here in just in the museum there. And it's going to be a special night, this particular night, with Carl Kuznetsky, Professor Tamara Davis, Jessica Bloom, live on stage as they introduce this film. So that should be quite a good evening. Once again, it is a chargeable event, $30 to $22. Plus, I think it's standing packages in $2 a ticket and that type of thing. So that's on the 30th of August. 6:30 on IMAX.
So, Peter?
Yep.
Did anyone else go to the Scienceworks thing 2 weeks ago? Was the Planet Hunters?
I didn't.
Yeah, I went along. It was really good.
Was it? What was it?
Planet Hunters.
Planet Hunters.
So the woman that's part of the originally the capital team has a real presence on how she presents the show. They did it in the planetarium, so they're projecting onto the dome. A lot of images, so that was really good.
Yeah, I think what we're going to do as a group is try to tap in a little bit more to Scienceworks. So it seems to be fairly active.
I get a feeling that was on the Meetup website.
I might have stuck it on Facebook when I saw it.
I saw it somewhere there.
Yeah, I put it on Meetup.
Yeah. Because there were a couple of interesting things during Science Week. One, quite literally at the last minute, I found out about 20 minutes before it started. There was a panel discussion on future of space travel that was at the Royal Society. But it was very oriented to women in science.
Oh, okay. Oh, yes, I did see that.
I'd have to look up the names. Now that
on Friday, where a couple of the same speakers and whoever's in faculties were doing space poetry readings.
Oh, wow.
So they'd read a poem with some sort of space theme or element to it, and they'd talk a little bit about the science behind it. It was a really good night.
So was that female? Was that female?
No, not necessarily.
There's all sorts of stuff. I mean, bottom line, if anyone sees anything, please send us an email.
So just the other interesting thing at the panel discussion was a couple of the members of the panel have got some consulting relationship with the space agency, and of course the question came up. A few people asking, there was all this positive buzz and energy, and I was thinking, I'm getting this incredible deja vu of all the factors leading up to the agency at the moment, were the factors that we saw back at the National Space Symposium back in 84 or 85 or whatever it was. So, wow, 30 years later, okay, maybe it's time to get a little bit further.
More things change, the world is the same.
Oh, yeah.
Can I say a few words about that?
Sure. Do you want to use the microphone? Yeah.
Hi. It took a month to set up, but I did an interview this morning with Dr. Carl, and it will be on the Space Show on Wednesday evening. And it's a 22-minute chat with him about the film and some of the issues involved in that. So I invite you to tune into 88.3 7 p.m. on Wednesday, or streaming live online.
Yeah, 88.3 is the frequency, not radio.
And the wireless.
Okay, so just about done. Just a reminder of the formula. Fortunately, the month, although in December, we work out what we're going to do in December. We were looking at something in 10 or 17. But our next meeting after this is September 24th. And as always, we take membership. So if you're not very good, you'd like to be. We'd love to talk to you. Kim's not here, membership officer. Actually, some people are here. There you go. Now, I'm going to hand over to our resident expert on all things Soviet, Russian, Igor Rozenberg.
Next month we get on the pressure.
Sure.
I attended something similar 2 years ago, which was Space Event. Yeah, set 1, 2, 3. Graduation? Okay. 2 years ago, it was a very another university when I presented a similar concept. It probably was more related to the history of futile attempts to establish an international commercial spaceport in Australia. Formula was technically just as water, meaning that because USSR and later Russia was so keen to get any payment for its space activities, the formula was bring more less reliable, proven, cheap Russian hardware, create some infrastructure, and start to collect money. Unfortunately, none of this project worked since 1985. So today's topic essentially would be 80% repetition of my previous presentation, and which meant to memorize that this country, depending how you counting, it was third country in the world, or maybe some other number, which actually managed to launch satellites on orbit. So the topic of today's presentation is the research Australia's spaceport driven from Woomera to future. Feel free to ask me any question. Unfortunately, I have slight speech impediment of my thick Russian accent today. So if you don't understand something which I try to share, just raise a hand. So let's play old school.
Do you have an accent?
Okay, we don't have officially in Australia space agency any longer, which I hope some of the visual materials will be used eventually.
Sorry, can you let Mark's a little bit of the door?
Test. 1, 2, 3.
Stop like that.
Mark, could you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mark had the accent.
Okay. So, again, to correct previous slide, which Australia spaceport dreaming from Woomera to the future. Why are we talking about why this subject is still important today? MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston, has a compulsory course for anybody doing space industry or rocket science. They're teaching system analysis of Apollo space program. Unfortunately, this country wasn't so lucky. Is it better?
Still, but maybe speak a bit louder.
Okay, I'll try. Okay. So MIT has a compulsory course for all graduate students who study aeronautical engineering. And USA and NASA was lucky enough to complete manned moon landing program. This country doesn't have such great proven record of space achievement. Even they started potentially at the same time like US, maybe slightly later. But I believe that all information which I will try to present today should be part of some university course because it's actually showing how probably not to do space program or we need to know some lesson learned, especially in spite of establishing of 2 months ago a new Australia Space Agency, just to make sure that we're not falling into the same trap when at least 10 attempts what happened in this country and nothing come out of this. All ingredients seem to be in place, but unfortunately end result was almost zero. Okay, so I'll try to make some jokes, probably some appropriate ones, some non-political correct. I started history of space program in this country not from Woomera. Well, we will talk about this a little bit later. Woomera effectively became a cradle not only of Australian space program but UK space program as well. And we will discuss why. Cape York Space Agency in Queensland, which I think was approximately 1985. And dreaming of Queensland Prime Minister to make Queensland a truly space state. The last attempt was Asia Pacific Space Center when they ordered development of medium launcher from Energy on Christmas Island. I will show you where you can find additional information, preferably in English language. And feel free to raise your hands. We will have dedicated Q&A session later on, but if you have some itching question, please ask me in the middle of the presentation, otherwise moment might go. Okay. Why this country is supposed to have a space program? This is according to the, let's say, literate people. Seriously, we still have, as a nation, the biggest military polygon or testing site in the Western world. And it's very, I'm talking about whichever call Woomera rocket range, which is now under management of Royal Air Force. So it's still very
Royal Australian Air Force.
Royal Australian Air Force. Yeah. Sorry. Hi. Welcome back. Just missed a joke, but I
I kind of get it.
Okay.
It's American humor, you can tell by the spelling.
I was about to present another joke which probably Peter would not approve it. It's politically incorrect. Somebody creative came with a new name of Australia Space Agency, and it's called Australian Space Research Establishment. You figure it out.
You can buy the t-shirts.
Yeah.
There's an online website for it. You can buy the t-shirts.
Sure you can. Okay. I start my story not from Woomera. I start the story from this quite fascinating, interesting story which sounds like a joke. In the middle of 50s, according to the author of the book about Woomera Spaceport, it's not Russian sources, it's actually Australian sources. Academy of Science, Russia, and you can see the great building on the left, which was former building. In New York, it's much more modern. Yeah, typical Cold War establishment. Sounds like picture was taken from the classical Cold War novels. Apparently, Russian Soviet Academy of Sciences, because they already announced that they will launch satellites, this announcement was simply unnoticed, comparing with US announcement, which Russian actually did announce that they're going to launch satellites, simply nobody believed them, or it wasn't on top of the news. So they came up to this proposal or request to Australian government to establish a satellite tracking facility in Australia because Russian territory didn't allow to provide 24/7 coverage. I don't know what happened with this request. It seems to be, it has been simply lost in some bureaucratic corridors somewhere in Canberra, because I was trying to trace it. It was not in Russian Academy of Science, it was not in CSIRO. I probably had to dig a little bit more, or maybe it's simply possible to dig up to 60 years of history. The fact is still the same. They requested, they probably would be rejected, which I think about the middle of the war, and they requested to put a relay station in the middle of the military. Yeah.
I'd start with the Foreign Affairs Department.
I believe it. We look in documents which have been lost.
Well, probably, but any official or semi-official contact would have gone through Foreign Affairs.
It was, yeah,
because I
we
can remember coming across this in the early 80s.
Okay, maybe I'm trying to follow the beaten track.
What year is this?
We're talking about mid-50s.
Mid-50s, means he's got no chance.
Okay. So,
Yeah, it would have been a check.
You just use this on the screen.
Yeah.
But that's the same screen. So
okay, is it better? Okay. Test 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, better.
Okay, sorry. So, again, because Russia didn't get any answer, they came to engage in a decision, which actually Chinese repeated maybe 30 years ago. They put most of their tracking station on the flotilla of the ships, and they get 24/7 coverage around the globe. But we could potentially have, in theory, and I'm not discounting it, this letter probably would follow proper channels, which may be a Soviet station in the middle of 50. Never say never, because at the same time, British managed to sell Rolls-Royce jet engines to Soviet Union in the middle of the Cold War. Yes, sir.
Do you know if the Soviets made any of the same sorts of overtures to South American countries?
Not at the same time. They have now GLONASS stations.
Because if you look logically in terms of coverage, and you know the old thing, they only need to be 120 degrees apart. The old Soviet Union covered almost 180 degrees of longitude, about 170 degrees of longitude. So all you would need was to be somewhere where the Soviet Union wasn't in terms of longitude, and the middle of that area would be South America.
Yeah, which is good in theory, but Cuban Revolution happened in 1959. So we're talking about
That's Central America, but Argentina, Chile.
I don't believe it was the case.
Right.
Considering political situation at that time. Okay. Okay, moving on. Does anybody know which word Woomera translates from Aboriginal language?
Yeah,
one of the Koori language, but to be politically correct. It's a spear thrower. So effectively, it's actually quite interesting that site, which is called Woomera, became the cradle of the two orbital launches. So we technically launched two satellites from the tip of the spear.
Have you ever seen a Woomera?
No, I'm planning to, and actually...
No, not Woomera, a Woomera, throwing stick. Have you ever seen it?
Only on the pictures.
Very, very clever use of physics.
Okay.
That is. It increases the moment arm, they can throw it much further.
Mm-hmm. So, Woomera rocket range, obviously located in South Australia. I have two Russian producers who are interested to produce documentary based on this contact, which is missing, funding. This is way to the Woomera. This is Woomera rocket range memorial plate. And this is this country true achievement. On 29th of November 1967, Australia launched its first satellite. It's called WRESAT. It stands for Weapons Research Establishment Satellite. And second and unfortunately last launch from Australian soil was happening on 28th of October 1979. It was Prospera X3 British satellite, launched on Black Arrow, and it was second attempt, I believe, which was third rocket from the series. So what happened, depending how you're counting the satellite launches, and yes, I know that we had discussion about this, so criteria are, what is country of origin of the satellite itself, what is country of origin of rocket itself, and which soil can be used for launching rocket. And depending how we counting all of these three criteria, which can be quite different results. We don't have this problem with the history of USSR and history of NASA launches, but everybody else they're getting into the mixture. This is why statistic is quite misleading in this case. For Australian first satellite launch, we had a satellite made in Australia by an Australian company, launched from Australian soil on the spare rocket from US, UK, and Australia operation on suborbital research. Because it was a spare rocket, it was made a decision, and actually American approved this. Without their approval, this launch would not happen. So this is why Australia counted as a third country in one book, because they managed to launch satellites from their soil, regardless which was launch vehicle. Okay, moving on. So this is pictures of the Sparta and Redstone program, which amazingly could potentially almost the same rocket, except slight modification. When Werner von Braun theoretically could launch before Sputnik was launched in the middle of 50s, but Pentagon wasn't interested in the whole idea. And I wish this logo, the logo of RESAT satellite, somehow will find its way to the new Australian Space Agency. Launchpad in Woomera, sorry, I didn't have time to add orbit parameters of the satellite. I believe it's still on the orbit, I might be wrong. The British satellite, second one, is definitely sitting on the orbit. Which last time it was communicated, it was 1996, and this was actually a great achievement. And there are some, Australia became the 7th nation to launch an Earth satellite, and it is understood the third to launch one from its own territory. So this probably concludes our discussion with you. And quote from newspaper, Australia last night confirmed its membership of the excluded space club as her first satellite continued in orbit after a copybook launching from Woomera in the afternoon. Second orbital mission was probably British proud of it because it was a British rocket. They call it satellite launcher, and it was all British spacecraft, Prospera X3. Unfortunately, after 1971, there were never any other orbital launches.
Well, not yet. We haven't lost the momentum. We're working on it.
Okay, from 1979 until today, and the worst part was when UK decided to cancel its space program around 1976, if I'm not mistaken, or technically it was put on hold in 1976, and Thatcher administration officially relieved of funding later on. Everything on Woomera at the moment, I believe it's still in so-called conservation state. You can see from this envelope that first attempt is supposed to be on 2nd of September 1970, but successful attempt happened in October of 1971. So not only N1 had problem at that time. Rocket engineering is still a hard thing to do. You can see mock-up. Actually, it's not a mock-up. It's a real rocket. It's a real hardware, and there is a copy. I believe it's a technological copy of Prospera satellite in Science Museum in London. And as you can see from flags, it was a joint venture of United Kingdom and Australia. There are some photos. Some of the people call it not very polite the flying cow, but it did a job. What happened next? I have a book, it's a very interesting book. Apparently British developed a space shuttle technology probably 6 years ahead of US, but it didn't fly. And this is Project Master. This is what's supposed to fly from Woomera up to 1970s. Well, actually, from middle of 60s. Unfortunately, it didn't happen by technology reason, by funding reason, and the rest of the history. It's supposed to be the second photo here. In contrast, this is future and this is reality, an empty, naked launch pad. Sorry, I didn't have time to do this. So now we're talking about Cape York Space Agency. If I rephrase slightly Charles Dickens, we're talking about the tale of two spaceports on Cape York. Sir Joe Belkey Patterson was the longest living Queensland Prime Minister. He resigned, I believe, around 1987, which was some kind of suspicion about corruption scandal, but the guy was visionary. He was a truly visionary. Obviously, it's very difficult not to be visionary when Gold Coast gets a big flood of investment at the same time, and Queensland was the most booming state in Australian economy. He predicted that car would be driven by hydrogen. We're talking about 1985. he tried to establish Queensland as a technology incubator. He had dream about launching rockets from the ground-based escapade. Probably wasn't quite feasible plan. And in his dreams, he would like to create an international commercial space agency in Queensland. And guess where he looked his eyes in order to establish this ability? Sorry, I probably mixed slides. Oh, we will return to aftermath later on. There were two competing consortiums. Pricewaterhouse think tank, accounting think tank, came with highly optimistic analysis of the international launch market, and I believe they were at least twice more optimistic, because in the middle of 90, when USSR was destroyed as a country, the price for rocket satellite launches significantly dropped. So value of the market probably shrunk significantly, but it was a hope that formula just add water, use Australia to launch rockets, bring cheap at that time Soviet hardware, and everything will be fine, and make sure that US will allow to launch on this facility of Western satellites. So this was a major formula. There were two competing consortiums, and second one, and each consortium has a different ways, different location on Cape York. One of them was Vega on West Coast, which means that rockets which start into east direction has to cross Cape York, which caused some social disturbance later on. And another consortium which effectively became CYSA, Cape York Space Agency, consortium of multiple companies, they purposely chose East Coast in Temple Bay. Both locations was disaster from logistical point of view, because without building either proper road, proper airport, or proper port facility, it would be impossible to bring rocket parts to this location. And originally, Cape York Space Agency was talking to Soviets about introduction of the Proton vehicle, which has quite aggressively bad fuel. None of these plans would be approved by followers of the Green Party movement. So Soviets actually did something amazing. At that time, rocket Zenit wasn't even, well, it wasn't publicly known to the West. Zenit rocket was designed in what now is Ukraine design bureau and manufacturing plant, which is called Yuzhny, which is translated southern. Zenit rocket was a Soviet asymmetrical answer to Ronald Reagan Star Wars. So imagine you have a capability to launch brand new satellite in 3 hours. It doesn't matter how other side can destroy them. If you can launch them at least 8 per day, which would be, there is always replacement. So the need fundamentally has been created not necessarily as intercontinental missile, which was created as a military answer to the threat of satellites to be destroyed on orbit. For this application, for civil application, which was invaluable, which has only 2 engines, which has only 2 stages, so comparing this to usage was probably much more simpler, and each launch could be fully automated without any ground-based personnel in 3 hours. Obviously, a launching campaign will take a little bit longer because you need to do some preparation work, but comparing even this Proton launching campaign or Soyuz launching campaign, which took weeks and months, the windows of launch has been significantly shrunk, and it will be much more beneficial for any commercial spaceport, because if you have a huge demand, you have a capability to support this demand by supplying rapidly rapid succession of the launches. So in 1985, which was a game changer, probably comparing what Elon Musk doing right now. Okay, so Russians put their ace on their deck of cards, and instead of selling Proton, they decided to sell the need, which was fueled by ecologically clean propellant. So it probably shut down a lot of environmental issues, because rather than toxic fuel for rockets, you have something more reasonably and better, with less impact on environment. So negotiations probably stalled by different reasons, because Australia didn't have space agency for starters. It was a state-based initiative. Federal government didn't do much for support, and this country didn't have even a single commercial operator which had a history. So if this consortium would be led something like Phoenix Solution, BAE, or Boeing, which probably would be a different story, but it didn't happen. And Russian side was presented by Globkosmos, which originally supposed to be a Russian space agency. In reality, it became a minor part of a Russian space program which dealing with the commercial launches. As a result, what actually we missed? Because all of this theory about applying the need for commercial launches materialized in 1996, when Boeing led consortium of the 4 private investors from US, Russia, Ukraine, and Norway managed to pull out rabbit of the hat 10 years later and produce first successful launch from the sea-based, first successful commercial launch from the sea-based platform. Italian did this for ages, but it was first commercial launch from equator, which delivered a payload to the geo orbit. Ironically, the place when they launched it, which was chosen by Wernher von Braun for his moon expedition, with the same location, Kiribati Island, formerly known as the Christmas Island, and we will talk about mix-up the 2 Christmas Islands. In 2008, sea launch has 36 attempts, and only 2 of them were complete failure, and 1 was anomaly. You could imagine how much money this country lost because of this opportunity. Imagine if the same rocket, the only difference in sea launch, which was the PLF, payload fairing from supplied by Boeing, and upper stage supplied by Nokia. All 2 stages of baseline the need configuration is still the same. Unfortunately, we missed this opportunity. This country could have a lot of money to earn. On top of success of sea launch, Ukraine and Russia at that time worked together, and they effectively restored launch capability of the NIT-2 from Baikonur Spaceport, which happens to be in Kazakhstan. At that time, they have 6 successful missions, 100% success, no problems. Plus, it was probably, I don't remember exact number, Russian used the NIT as well for federal launches. They use it with Brigade space tech. The ill-fated Phobos group mission was launched on this configuration as well.
Igor, can you just go up to the microphone again?
Sorry?
Yep.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm walking away.
Yeah.
Carried out and walking away. So this is what we miss with why KVO Space Agency didn't materialize. And obviously I'm not counting even the number of Proton. This consortium, sea launch, originally was led by Boeing. At the moment it belongs, it has been restructured a couple of times. It has been bankrupted in 2014 because Russia decided not to cooperate with Ukraine by some political reasons. We're not talking about this right now. Last year it has been sold to Russian private operator, which called S7 airline. It's a civilian airline with the distinct green colors. Okay, moving on to Australia. Back to, sorry.
Just go back to Cape York for a minute.
Yeah.
1984 to 86 was when there was a lot of lobbying to develop a space agency in Australia and so on. And then 86 with the loss of Challenger. And then the other launch failures in America that took the Atlas and Delta out of commission for a while. Was the opportunity of a guy called Stan Schatzel, who was with Hawker de Havilland Australia, led putting together a proposal for something up north of Queensland, as close to the equator as possible. And the federal saying, hey, this is our opportunity because nearly all the Western rockets are out of commission. Approached the federal government, who just said go away.
I don't believe they objected much, but they
Sorry,
didn't.
I was there at the time.
Sorry. I'm using, probably history has been brushed out in this country.
No, I went to some of the conferences and things at the time when the proposals were being done, and I think I gave you copies of the books at some stage, the reports. So they approached Joe Bjelke-Petersen, and the initial idea of doing a Weeper was that had the biggest available infrastructure for ships coming in, which were loading up with aluminium and sailing off. But then, as I said, they had a problem of launching across land.
And which was the objection.
So that's where that was the sort of the political scene was sitting behind at the time. But a lot of the local industry saw the opportunity because of the failures of the US launch vehicles, and then they start making the overtures to the Soviet Union.
Soviet Union didn't start it. They tried to get a commercial footprint. At that time, I believe the two major commercial operators at the time were European Space Agency with Ariane launcher. I believe it was Ariane 4 at the time, plus Chinese. But Chinese rapidly lost credibility because they had a couple of huge failures at the time. Plus, it was always with Chinese, there is always suspicion that they try to steal Western technology, unless proven otherwise. So it actually was a good momentum because in 1991, after the dissolution of USSR, Russia entered on this market and they technically captured a lot of market share. So obviously between 1985 and 1991, which was a golden opportunity for this country to step in. And it did not happen. I understand you were witness of this event. I was in a different country at the time, so I did not have a clue that this is what happened. Next time, I bring two posters from Black Cosmos. The same line which was used in Contact movie, you need to ride to orbit, and guess what? There are no Zenith on the picture, there are no Cyclone on the picture. It was even worse. In 1986, Soviets republished British book in which N1 and Cyclone, not even mention about Zenith because on where Zenith was unknown at this time. They have been cut out. If you put side by side English version of the book and Russian version of the book, it's amazing what they can do with censorship. I'll talk to you about this later on. Okay, moving on. I believe I'm almost run out of time. Okay, 5 minutes. Our closest thing for establishing satellite capability from our own land was Christmas Island. The guy who tried to establish spaceports on Christmas Island could be our Elon Musk. He was a Korean immigrant, his name was David Wong, and he was so close to reach his goal. Unfortunately, also his dream had been dropped dead when Australia Taxation Office decided to ask should chase him for taxation liability when federal government give him funding, but they decided to tax him even before he even had a chance to do anything. This is Christmas Island in Indian Ocean, which is Australian territory. Please don't mix up former Christmas Island in Pacific Ocean, which is now called Kiribati, because it was a lot of articles when they mix it up. And this island has space history as well, and I believe Chinese satellite tracking station was on that island in Pacific. So we could have this. Unfortunately, instead of Christmas Island, Aurora on the Christmas Island, it became a Christmas Island carol or swan song, because nothing happened. This guy was probably the closest what we can do. He negotiated with Energia, and Energia tried to produce this rocket, which was the greatest version of Soyuz 2 rocket. We could have a manned capability for launch in this country around 2002, if everything would be fine. Unfortunately, history didn't prove this. What happened after Christmas Island is historical disaster, which led to two major events. European decided to launch Soyuz from Kourou. Sorry, we didn't have the picture. And based on success, first launch was from 2011, and Russian, because they were quite amazed at how quickly European managed to put everything in place, they decided to build their own capability on Восточный Spaceport. Unlike Christmas Island plans, they didn't risk it. They decided not to wait until new launch vehicle. They decided to use proven one Soyuz 2. This is why this plans actually succeeded. The most recent, I don't have even time to discuss all of them. The most craziest and recent one was to establish, again, this is next, sorry. If you remember MOVE, the postman always ring twice. This attempt was the need launcher to ring twice in Australia. This plan has been presented by Ukrainian ambassador in Russia, and he sincerely believed that the need is ready, even without upper stage. I didn't hear anything from this story after that, which probably was a good PR for Ukraine, but nothing materialized so far. I hope that with the establishment of Australia's space agency, the sky is not a limit. Some people believe that this could happen in our city, like Elon Musk heavy launcher could be launched from Collins Street, but it's still a dream. So we're looking for Victorian Space Agency with a ripped-off NASA logo. This was a source of inspiration for me for this one. There is one more book in the history of energy, and I try to use a little, probably too much quote from Charles Dickens, from his books. And everybody who is interested in history, you have to read last year, which was published by a book about Australian space by a curator of the Powerhouse Museum. This woman worked for ages, I believe. She dedicated all her life to carefully preserve the space history. Especially space history in this country. So we look forward to the future. Any questions?
So just another little add-in. The Christmas Island project, one of our members, Ian Bryce, who's an engineer, for about 2 years, I think, he was working with the Christmas Island company. And they had a small team of engineers and a few other specialists, and they did at least 2 trips to Moscow. Not just there, they actually went to some interesting, because I was discussing with Ian at the time, giving some hints of factories to try and visit, and managed to visit them, just out of Moscow.
Christmas Island project was quite interesting. David Cohn spent probably 3 or 4 years trying to get some I believe on their first rocket, which wasn't ready at the time. He negotiated the wrong route. Effectively, when Energia took over, they originally proposed to do Soyuz 2 because it requires less time and much quicker time to the market. But they decided to upgrade Soyuz and it did not go to nowhere. Okay, and the rest is the history.
Yep.
So I have enough material from the book because I'm lazy and don't have time. I probably did not do the book yet, but it potentially would materialize one day. And while doing this show, I believe this input would be invaluable because Australia's Space Agency one day have to do feasibility study. What is the best location in this country to establish spaceport? Commercial or Commonwealth level doesn't matter. We have to have independent access to space. This nation deserves it.
But that's just not on the space agency's agenda for the next 5 years.
Explicitly said they're not going to do that.
It was an announcement today that they might do feasibility study and not have enough funds and power will to create a spaceport, but they have to do some preliminary study. What is the best location?
It seems daft that they spend money on something that bigger companies won't start these things to buy anyway. If they don't waste their money, they're going to waste their money.
Well, at the moment we're paying other country for launching our payloads. This is reality right now.
Igor, I think we've got a question over here.
Sorry.
I went to a CubeSat workshop last month, and I was surprised by how many people were there presenting on their current launch opportunities in Australia. Their Equatorial Launch Australia is actually getting online their spaceport up in East Arnhem Land at the moment, and as of next year, they hope to have their first launch pad available. If you've got a rocket, you can take it there and launch. So.
I heard about a lot of activity by Gilmore Aerospace.
I think Gilmore is leasing through them, same as Black Sky Aerospace, but it's Equatorial.
Which is in Singapore. I didn't have even time to establish some facts from new space.
Yeah. But they're actually ready for commercial launches as of next year. So I think half a dozen pads.
And technically, at least the last time I looked into this in the last 12 months, the company and paperwork registration for the silent companies and projects is still valid. So it's either being registered for a ridiculously long time or someone's still paying the bills because they were trying to make it happen.
I believe company which was Asia Pacific Space Center was registered and it was operated by other name. I forgot to mention something funny. In 2007, when Putin was here, politics, he met David Wong in Sydney. But it was too late because French Guiana project Soyuz in Cuba was in full swing. So probably David tried to appeal to Russian president, but he was not interested anymore to have this capability in Australia because it would be effectively duplicate what they did in South America with the European Space Agency. Sorry, I'm out of
No worries. All right, well, thank you, Igor. That was fantastic, fascinating. Thank you very much. Thank you for putting the fantastic. Right, we're going to take a break now, and we'll have we'll come back at 7:50, about 20 minutes, and we're going to have our space news wrap up. So, if you would like to drink food and snacks and things over there, please, there's a flag hanging on the seat here. Much appreciated. got to take seats. We're going to get on with space.
Michael, you're right in front of the camera, mate.
Space news. Get your space news. Extra. You know all about it. Alright, thank you everyone. I hope you had a good chat. Sounds like it was going well. Sorry to interrupt. But we now are going to pick up the meeting. So we've got Angelo, Grazia and Angelo, who are now going to give us a roundup of this month's space news. Over to you, Angelo.
Okay. Thanks, Peter. The audio is not flashed, so I hope everyone can hear me. Hopefully this thing is working. Please tell me it's working, Michael.
Yeah, we can hear you through the podium.
You can hear me okay? Is that working?
Just
no.
using the podium, right?
Oh, you can just use, that's what you're talking about, laser point.
No, I know that. That's not what I'm...
Use human voice 1.0.
No, it's a laser pointer. Laser
Sorry,
pointer.
I need the
I thought it was
doogie to work. All right. Well, welcome again to another exciting month of space news. It's a bit of an eclectic combination of bits and pieces here, but hopefully you'll get something out of it and enjoy it. Okay, the first thing, Washington Roundup, as usual. Various items. ISS funding end by 2024 may not be feasible, according to the NASA Administrator, Bridenstine. What that is code for is there's no commercial interest. No one wants to take over the space station and run it. So the Americans might have a little bit of a problem as they near 2024. Next item, recent polls. 43% want Earth climate monitoring. 25% want asteroid monitoring. 8% want to focus on other planets. And only 3%, sorry Len, want to return to the moon.
It's quality, not quantity.
No, it's a mentality, it's lost generation.
Yeah.
Okay, Spaceport, government now pursuing this. Formal announcement was made during the month, but it still needs an act of Congress. Interestingly, not surprisingly, Space Force support is definitely split on party lines. Republicans 68% support it, and Democrats only 12% support it. Polarisation is probably because of Trump's support. The majority of the public, 55%, interestingly enough, are not supportive of it. So that was some of the recent polling that was done. Russia again is talking about stopping the export of RD-180 engines. As you know, that's been the ongoing battle. They power the Atlas V, and when the commercial crew actually launches on the Atlas V next year, it will be powered by Russian engines. Now there's also talk of a summit with Jim Bridenstine and Roscosmos Dmitry Rogozin, but it's still pending. You might not know that Rogozin is, and I took these words from Igor's notation that he sent me. Rogozin is a person non grata in the West after the 2014 sanctions. So
is persona non grata.
Oh, persona non grata. Yeah. Okay, there's the International Space Station. It may be in doubt. There's the Space Force. So that's an interesting development. But mind you, it is countering what has been long-established information through the military of China and Russia's efforts in space militarisation. So I guess the Americans counter it with a Space Force. Okay, let's talk commercial crew. Some exciting news this month. Of course, we have on the left we have the Starliner, the CST-100 from Boeing, and on the right we have Crew Dragon from SpaceX. And again on the left you'll see the actual demonstration Mission 1 versions being prepared. I've got this little picture. This is an interesting one. At one of the NASA buildings, these are the seats that some of the astronauts will gear up before they get into the van and are taken to the launch pads. Talk a little bit more about Boeing.
So that's obviously not SpaceX because the other one dials.
With the analog dials. They did actually say it was for both SpaceX and, so NASA's obviously had a hand in those things. Key commercial crew Boeing launches. The second quarter of 2019, there will be a pad abort test. No in-flight abort test will be done through Boeing. So that's now slipped to the second quarter of 2019, and that will be done before the manned launch. Late 2018, early 2019, I wouldn't be saying late 18. It's more like first quarter, second quarter of 2019. There'll be an uncrewed OFT-1 on the Atlas to the space station. Mid-2019, probably around June, there's the crewed version. And this is what it looks like on the pad. This is the space suit that this is the Boeing space suit. This is a video, but I won't play this because it's an old one. SpaceX, here's their timelines. Late 2018, we probably have a Crew Dragon in-flight abort test. Now that I believe will happen this year. The next event, not earlier than November, will be the Falcon 9 Block 5 uncrewed Dragon demo to the space station. That is likely to happen. It may even get to December, but they're actually integrating the Crew Dragon as we speak. And they've stated that April 2019 will be the first crewed flight to ISS. I suspect this will slip, but the window is narrowing as we go. The other thing that NASA did recently was they approved this load and go approach. What that is that the astronauts will be sitting in the Crew Dragon as they load up the rocket with fuel. Has never been done before. Normally they load up the rocket with fuel and then they put astronauts on board. This is a different way of doing it. They'll have to fly 5 Block 5 missions to demonstrate that particular loading technique before they'll allow astronauts on it. There's Crew Dragon, there it is, that's the one that will be used. That was when it came back in July from testing. That's what it looks like with its trunk sitting on top of a Falcon 9. There it is. When that render was done, it was clearly not a Block 5, but it will be a Block 5. You might take note, because I'll come back to that, but the cladding around the launch tower, I'll come back to it. There it is flying, there it is to the station, and they will parachute down. In fact, the Crew Dragon has 4 parachutes. So it looks pretty impressive when it comes down. And I'll just take you for a little trip. Very airline-like, very sleek, pretty fancy. All right, the commercial crew, the crew assignments, that came down this month. So there was a ceremony at Johnson Space Centre, and they basically announced the teams. There's not much out of those notes. But what will happen is that the first 2 missions, the first Starliner will have 3 astronauts, the first Crew Dragon will have 2. But they've got more seats in those, not for the test flights, but when they get into commercial flights, and they will be picked from the various international partners. And the story goes that even the Russians will get a bit of a ride in some of these vehicles as well. Okay, that's the group that are going to fly. There they are. Again, because of time, I'm not going to play this video, but this was the selection. But I'll come back to SpaceX. SpaceX is scheduled for April, and it will be flown by Robert Behnken and Douglas Hurley, first test mission. Each of these astronauts flew on 2 shuttle missions, including Hurley, on the final STS-135. So these guys got experience. They are NASA astronauts. They were also 2 of the 4 astronauts selected by NASA in July 2015 to be trained to fly commercial crew missions. The first Crew Dragon post-certification mission will be flown by Victor Glover, another rookie astronaut selected in 2013, and Mike Hopkins, who spent 166 days on space station mission. Again, experienced people. And there's the first 2 astronauts on the first test flight. And this is the first commercial flight of SpaceX, these 2 guys. That mission will probably have a couple of other astronauts, either from NASA or from international partners. Boeing, the first mission there, they will fly 3 astronauts, not 2. Because one of them is Chris Ferguson, who's actually was an ex-shuttle astronaut on STS-135, but he's also a Boeing employee. He's helped design the Starliner. So that'll be the first test mission. He'll be joined by Eric Bowe, who flew 2 shuttle missions, and Nicole Anapu, a member of the astronaut class, so she's a rookie. NASA officials didn't state why 3-person crew would be flying on the Starliner, but the agency announced an agreement earlier this year with Boeing to study turning that crew. Because of the gap of getting to the space station, they're looking at turning some of these test flights, perhaps into operational flights to the space station. They're running out of time. They've not booked extra Soyuz seats, so they need to deal with this. The first Starliner post-certification mission will be Josh Cassada and Sunita Williams. Cassada is a rookie, but Williams, as you know, has spent 322 days in space on long-duration missions, so she's a very experienced astronaut. And there's the first test, demonstration, and this is the first commercial. And of course, who gets there first gets the right to bring that flag back down. And that was placed there by the last shuttle mission in 2011 from Atlantis. So it's been a long time coming, as they say. Now, the access arms. First time at Kennedy Space Center, there are 3 astronaut access arms on the towers. The first one, of course, is the SLS. That was actually built for the Constellation program. It's now been modified for the Space Launch System, and it's pretty interesting, pretty engineering, cute, and here it is in operation. There it goes. Very cute. The next tower that went up is thinking. The next tower that went up was the one at Space Launch Complex 41, and that's the Boeing one. As part of the commercial crew, Boeing got $4.6 billion to create their commercial crew capsule. SpaceX got 2.3. So they're spending wisely at very engineering. Reckon is that? Okay. Moving on. So you'll see there's the Starliner sitting on top of an Atlas, which is powered by RD-180 Russian engines. And here it is going up. And there's some astronauts going around to have a look at it. It's interesting because these astronaut pictures were out before they announced the crews. We should have guessed that they were the astronauts for those crews, but we didn't. Anyway, moving on. That's sitting at Launch Complex 41. Now, this next one is the SpaceX version of the arm. Very architectural. There it is, have a look at that. Pretty cool, away from the weather. Great walk to Crew Dragon. Very touristy, isn't it? I wonder. There it is going up. There it is being installed on top of the Launch Complex 39A. Very historic tower. Now remember that I said, look at that picture with the cladding. Well, Elon Musk the other day said, yeah, we still intend to clad this thing. So It's going to be a kind of a launch structure like none other, but very typical of SpaceX. There you have it. And there they are walking. There, that's the first test crew. That picture was out before they selected the crew or made public announcements. Should have guessed that it was those two. And here's a picture that you might have recalled back from the BFR. You know, all these people are going to Mars. So that's pretty cool. So 3 launch towers, walkways. SpaceX General. Telstar 19 was launched on the 22nd, just before our last meeting. Block 5 Falcon, second flight. A few days later, Iridium 7 got launched from Vandenberg. Again, Falcon 5, Block 5, Falcon 9, Block 5, launched the 10 Iridium satellites. Then, not long after, they launched the second flight of the Block 5 Falcon, not more than 2.5 months when it launched. This booster actually launched tests. So 2.5 months later, after they pulled apart, if you like, the first Block 5 Falcon, they flew it again. And it landed. They all landed back on barges. The one from Vandenberg, the previous mission was meant to have captured the fairing, but it was a really wild and windy day, and they abandoned the fairing capture. But the rocket itself landed on the drone ship in pretty severe conditions. So, again, pretty impressive stuff. Another interesting thing that happened, SpaceX sponsored a Mars Missions Conference, but it's all been kept under wraps. They basically told all the invitees from NASA, academia, and various other organisations, just don't say anything about it. But they did have that conference, and clearly to shape their forward look and planning to Mars. Here is they'll do this sooner or later. Here is one of the parafoils being controlled to the ship called Mr. Stephen to be captured via a net. Now, since that picture was taken, Mr. Stephen has increased its net 4-fold, so a bigger target area. But we should see that in coming flights. This was one of the boosters coming back to Port Canaveral. Michael, you should remember that pier. The next picture is, of course, the Block 5 has the ability of actually folding up the legs, and they were testing that. It turns out that they've taken them all off to transport the booster, but they do actually are meant to come up and pretty much stow away and then move. Again, to simplify the turnaround time to launching that rocket. Now, Falcon Heavy, again, that's coming. There's one more mission this year with the Falcon Heavy. That's a US Air Force payload. No earlier than November, but it'd be great to see that fly again. This is a video about Elon Musk, which I've told Len I won't show it, but it is a good video. If we've got time, we'll come back to it. And Blue Origin, very quickly. There he is, Mr. Bezos. There's his New Glenn rocket. This is an older version of it. He's not doing the smaller fairing, the 5 metre fairing. I think he's gone to, Michael, 8 metres, 9 metres, or I forget the size of the rocket. It's now straight anyway.
It's straight.
And here's his BE-4 rocket engine. But there's a possible delay to that New Glenn launch. It was currently scheduled for 2020, most likely 21, 22. So there is a delay on that. And you'll see the rockets there. The New Glenn 3-stage is this kind of rocket they'll use. And the first stage booster will be landing at the Cape. And you can compare that to Falcon Heavy, and you can compare that to the Saturn V. It's a pretty big rocket. There you go. Queensland. Strato launch. That got a bit of press this month. There it is, biggest aircraft in the world. There it is. They've been doing some taxiing along the runway. It won't be long before they actually fly it. But what they did announce was that they're building, at the moment the only payload is the little rocket on the left, which is Pegasus. However, they're now developing their own rockets, including the space plane. So there's air-dropped rocket, medium satellite launcher, and this little mini shuttle will actually be supposed to be man-rated. So we'll see how that goes. Interesting developments from Mr. Allen, who's Microsoft fame. Rocket Lab. Well, the next launch, we may have said this last time, but it has been delayed until November to modify some motor controllers amongst other issues. So hopefully we'll start to see flights continually flying out of New Zealand. And they've actually got other places to fly out of as well. It's not just not just New Zealand. They're looking for American launch sites, one in Europe, and a few other bits and pieces. So pretty exciting stuff for Rocket Lab. Benefit they have is that they're one of the first of these small satellite launches. The other one, Gilmore Space, we spoke about them. They're an interesting crew. It's an Australian and Singapore-based rocket company. Gilmore Space Technologies has conducted its most powerful orbital engine test to date. They actually have a hybrid motor that uses hydrogen peroxide as its oxidizer, and they didn't say what the fuel actually is. But they actually achieved an 80 kilonewton thrust. Just for comparison, the engines that power the Electron, the Rutherford engines, are actually 22 kilonewtons. It's just that the Electron has 9 of them. So this is actually quite a large engine for that class of rocket. It's a Queensland company, and 79 at the last count people that work there. It's a space startup. Sorry?
79 small launch vehicles.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry, I got that wrong. They're one of 79 companies that are building small sat rockets, and there's probably more than that. These are the kind of official, acknowledged small sat providers who are either building a new rocket or developing engines or doing whatever to launch small satellites. So these guys are getting in early as well if they can actually achieve what they're trying to do. And you'll notice that the second last paragraph, or dot point, they're going to launch aerial to suborbital space in 2018, that's this year. Then next year, 2020, the Eris 100, it's a 3-stage commercial vehicle capable of putting 100 kilos into orbit, followed by Eris 400 in 21, a clustered engine vehicle for payloads up to 400 kilograms. So, it's a serious rocket from Australia. Fantastic. Moving on, let's watch a quick engine test. Pretty good. Sorry?
Where are they launching from? Just anywhere that there's a spaceport, or are they going to?
I don't know. Does anybody know the answer?
I think we're going to do it during the schoolies week. So
They're building their own, and they've also reached out to Angelo in Australia, and I think they've started the process of committing to that. I'm not really sure how far that process is going now.
anniversaries. Some interesting ones. Margaret Hamilton. I showed a video not so long ago about her involvement in writing the code for pretty much the Apollo program. There's a famous picture of her standing in front of, that high ream of obviously dot matrix printouts from the old IBM. So pretty cool. And we also have Gene Kranz had a birthday. Gene's having one of his happy moments.
Angelo, today NASA put up a picture of Margaret Hamilton on her 100th birthday.
No, that was this lady here.
Oh, Johnson's, yeah.
Catherine Johnson. Yeah.
My mistake, sorry.
That's okay. Not so hidden figure, 100th birthday today. And I think it was today, American time, it was yesterday, our time. Anyway, she, if you've watched Hidden Figures, love the movie, she's the kind of star of it, but she was employed in the mid-50s at Langley, and she went on to do all the flight analysis and trajectories for certainly Alan Shepard and the Redstones, and did some confirmation of the trajectories for John Glenn. And at that time, they were just transitioning into the computerisation of the space flights. So, but she was around even to the days of the shuttle, and there she is now. And Mr. Obama obviously presented her with all sorts of awards. There she is at some gala performances, and they named a facility after her. So, yeah, interesting. There was another anniversary. Of course, Neil Armstrong. On the 25th, he died of August, so in 2012. So, just a little few pictures of Neil. Of course, he flew the X-15, and if you go to the Washington Air and Space Museum, you'll see that X-15 with that. His X-15 that he flew. Others flew it, of course, but he flew that, sitting in the foyer there, hanging in the foyer. There he is, as a young bloke, and of course the very famous shot of him ejecting from the flying bedstead whilst they were practicing vertical landings. Cool as a cucumber. I forget, there's a story of one astronaut going up in his office.
They were sharing offices because the offices were allocated alphabetically.
Who was it? Was it Alan
Bean?
Alan Bean.
Story, yeah.
And said, I heard you almost killed yourself today.
His officer Neil was sitting there. He said, I heard there was a story there on TV. They said, yes, what happened? He said, I bailed out. I said, oh yeah. I go, what are you doing at work? I said, well, I'm at work. No, what's the big deal?
Big deal. So, if there was ever a fitting person to put on the first lunar flight, clearly it was him. They made the right decision.
Well, you want attitude, right?
And there he is coming down the ladder. That's obviously a slightly enhanced picture. There he is. There's his footstep.
No, it isn't. That's Buzz's foot.
Hey,
Geez, how did that get there?
what is that? Is that incredible guy on the right?
How did that get in the pictures?
What's going on there?
Anyway, for those that don't know, that's our illustrious president who's sitting over there. When he met Neil Armstrong, and Len was there at that meeting because he came to Australia. What was it?
2011.
In 2011, the year before he died.
1 year and 1 day.
Yeah, and he came here by invitation. The chartered
CPA. Yeah, he was interviewed by head of
Anyway, I'm kicking myself for not going. We thought we'd see him again, but a year later, gone. All right, let's talk a little bit about NASA. I haven't got much time. Space Launch System, it's still going. It's been going for 10 years. Sorry. It's been going for longer than that because it reincarnated as the Space Launch System after Constellation was cancelled.
You've already forgotten Aries 1X.
Oh, forget Aries. It was just
Aries 5.
Apparently no astronaut would have survived the ride anyway, I was told. But it vibrated badly.
No, that's all.
Oh yeah, big springs in the seats, I heard. They've made the oxygen tank of the core stage, and it's now being integrated. Of course, we now have the launch tower, which is moving at a reasonable rate to get ready for the launch. By the way, the first launch of the SLS will be Exploration Mission 1. That's not scheduled until 2020, so it ain't going to happen next year.
The President has made a speech about committing the nation before this decade is out, have to think about what they want to do in space.
Oh, well, that's been going on for the last...
Is that the Leaning Tower, that one?
That's the Leaning Tower. By the way, they're going to build another one. Yeah, because that shortens the time between... They're going to build another one. They've actually got funding, and I think proposals were going out to various contractors to build the second launch tower. And the reason is the SLS in its first flight is a Block 1B or something, or 1, and the second mission, EM2, is a Block 2, which is taller. So they, rather than launch the first one and then take 4 years to refit this tower, they're going to have to. Makes sense. So
It'll still take 4 years.
they're not cheap though. Anyway, the sadness of this particular project, besides the fact that it's there's nothing reusable about it, is that it's driven by cash flow. Nothing more.
It's not a program. It's working really well. It's providing jobs in key electoral college states.
Exactly what it was intended to do.
Exactly what it was intended to do.
Correct.
Brilliantly.
There it is. This is actually EM1. You can tell because it's got the single engine at the bottom. Oh, how do you protect from radiation in space? This is the way they'll do it with a right, because they're going into deep space and they're not shielded by solar flares. So here we have it. That's what they do. They get below this little cavity, and it's all sort of padded and more protected than the spaceship.
Into the service module, or is it part
No,
of
it's not in the service module. It's kind of a sort of a base trunk to the command module, if you like.
Under the floorboards.
Get under the floorboards, exactly right. And there it is. That's the heat shield has just been put on. That's I think that's EM1. And this is what it looks like when you look inside it. So there's plenty of space, and it's pretty big. It's a lot bigger than Apollo.
Shit's leading line.
Now they're starting to stress and strain and pull the actual core stage at the Marshall Space Flight Center, and they, putting the various sections. This, interestingly, is the flight aboard version. Remember the Apollo Little Joe? This is the SLS version of this thing. They're going to do, this is launch board number 2. Number 1 was done in 2010, where the command module basically fired its escape tower and did its thing. They're now going to go to max Q and abort at that point. So this is coming up. This will be the next major event, if you like, of this particular program.
When?
Not sure. I wouldn't put a date on anything with SLS. And that's what it actually looks like, in its proper colours and its proper visual coding that the solid rocket boosters actually have.
I hope they changed the paint job since Tat 1. They're now putting like big orange and black stripes down the side of it.
Are they?
Yeah.
I haven't seen
I've
that.
seen a new paint job since Tat 1.
I haven't seen that one. I remember the old stripes that they had on it. That they dubbed that years ago, and this was the latest. But it could be a later evolution.
That looks like a test pack.
Yeah. Oh, that will be EM1
Yeah.
configuration.
Yeah.
It's a barcode that reads $10 square.
Yeah. The one that I love looking at though is this picture here. You can't read it here, but it's great because this is the actual profile, and this is how they will. This is the lunar orbit that they will undertake, and it will be a mission of about 25, about a month. They'll give the capsule a really good shakedown. The only problem I've got is that this will launch in 2020, and I still think they're talking 2022 for the first manned flight. Not sure what the pacing activity for 2022 is, but I got the funny feeling it might be the upper stage, because they've got what's called the exploration upper stage that they're developing, which will have 4 HL10 engines on it, whilst the first EM1 will only have the interim cryogenic upper stage, which only has 1 HL10 engine on it. But pretty cool. Now, Kennedy Space Centre upgrades. This just gives you a bit of an idea of what's going on down there, but you'll see on the left-hand side, you'll see the X-37 and Dream Chaser on the runway. You'll see Strato launch on the runway, and the XS1, right? That's the DARPA Phantom, what's it called? Something Phantom? No. Phantom Express or something. It's a military rapid deployment rocket. They tested it's a modified RS-25 space shuttle engine that they've tested and adapted for this particular mission. Anyway, moving on, you've got Complex 4639 Vector, the skid strip. I'm not familiar with that. MDA, MRBM, captive carry, and Orbital Pegasus. Interesting. And on the launch pad sides, you'll see the various players, but Peter and Mike were at the Cape when they dropped Complex 17 and 18. They blew them up the other day, and that's Moon Express. And you'll see that Blue Origin is down at Atlantic Oceans. They'll both pick up their rockets from the Atlantic. This picture doesn't show you further north, top of the page, even further, they're talking about building some more landing pads for both SpaceX and Blue Origin, New Glenn. So there's certainly a real vibe about what they're doing at Kennedy Space Centre. Pretty interesting little picture that. Small launch vehicles. Okay, these are the current small launch vehicles that are active, and you will see that you've got the Chinese right in there, Rocket Lab with Electron, and a few others, Monitor, of course, and Pegasus. These are small launch vehicles under development. It's not the complete list, but there's about 79, 80, 90 perhaps that are serious, and you'll see on the right-hand side the dates. They all range from 2018 to 2021. There will be a proliferation of launches over the next few years. And the cost per kilogram, Len's favourite talking point, but this is only loaded with orbit for small satellites, but Firefly Alpha comes in at $10,000 per kilogram. And it currently goes up to $68,000 per kilogram. So, interesting. Okay, Russia. I have to acknowledge Igor for this information. I couldn't smuggle this information out of the country, but Igor did. Angara. So, Angara launch pad at Vostochny will require 45 months for completion. When you read this stuff on Russia, it's all, the 2020s time frames. It's like SLS, the same deal, slow go, cash flow driven. Angara launch pads on Vostochny, construction to be commenced in September 2018. An upgraded Angara A5M to fly from there. I believe, Igor, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the only place they will fly Angaras?
No,
Platest, okay.
They have launch pads at the sets already. A5M and modernized is required because there are some concepts they didn't satisfy original specifications. So they're going to increase lower boosters, at least for 10%, by 10%.
Okay. So Khrushchev, there's some statistics. They reckon they've got contracts. Obviously, a lot of them are with the government and to deploy the new low Earth orbit constellation. So there's a whole, variances of the Angara heavy lifter, but that will be quite a significant rocket. It pretty much replaces the Proton. The Proton, as you know, they will stop making this They've still got 20 orders, 17 confirmed. Production to be phased out in 21 and eventually will be replaced by Angelo. NPO Energomash stopped the mass production of the engines already, and they've also cancelled a light version of it, so it's not going very far. Soyuz, that's up and down. I'll just show you. That's the kind of bit.
It's not Soyuz.
That's not quite.
No, this was previous generation of Soyuz.
Okay,
This
all
is
right.
not current. Sorry.
It's almost like SLS, trying to keep up with it. But again, they are developing this, and the idea is that it will be used for the manned flights.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Of course, Federation spacecraft will be launched by a Soyuz 5. And that's, when this was written, it was 2021. Igor, I have no idea now.
Move to the right.
No idea? Okay.
No, move to the right. At least 2022.
Okay, excellent. All right. The moon, the Russians still have their eyes on the moon, without a shadow of a doubt. Not only are they involved in the Lock G thing with the Americans and the international, but they're certainly got a few missions that they plan to put up there. Luna 25, and it has slipped to 21, and then there's Luna 28 soil return. So they'll certainly be going head to head with the Indians and with the Chinese in particular. Okay, moving on. And they are involved in, I'm almost out of time here. Energia, super heavy launch vehicle, is to be funded by a federal development program. So they're still, after all those rockets we spoke about, they're still talking about the super heavy launch vehicle. So we'll see what comes out of that. Khrushchev Rocket Center will be renovated and become Moscow Star City, and the new national satellite constellation Sphera will be launched, as we said before. And they're now telling me that that's different again.
No, this is different. This is Vulcan.
Holy cow, I can't keep up. Anyway.
This is the current configuration.
Shakers and movers, and Igor gave me this information, but if you read down that list, you'll find a whole lot of movement in the Russian space industry. Now, I don't know if it's as a result of quality problems that they've had, or some of the political problems that they had. Timeline, I mean, Mr. Putin has asked Roscosmos to please stick to program, get on with it and sort your quality problems out, but there's a lot of movement there. So, very interesting developments. Very quickly, China. This is the best comment I found for the month from China. China doesn't think that the multinational cislunar Lock G is a good idea. They said that they will go straight to the moon instead. Talk about a bit of common sense. And there's the Lock G, in case you didn't know what it was. And there are the Chinese looking up at it.
In US spacesuit.
Sorry?
In US spacesuit.
Let's not be technical about this. 2 more minutes, Mike, and I'll get out of here. India, Chandrayaan, the Chandrayaan 2 lunar orbiter lander rover delayed from October to January due to technical glitches, but the Indians are going to the moon. Prime Minister Modi announced that India is also going to launch a man by 2022, which was a bit of news to the head of the ISRO, K. Sivan. Hey, they'll work it out. They'll work it out. And there's the rockets I'll use, and there's the capsule. It's quite a large capsule, actually. I was surprised by the size of this thing. Very nice. And there's the Chandrayaan 2 configuration. As you can see, you've got a rover, the orbiter, and the lander. And to finish with, World Cup. I love this one. This guy does these pictures, and this was the launch of Parker solar probe, and there, that's the Delta Heavy. It's good. He does a lot of these. I've got a few previous presentations that knock you out. They're brilliant, especially when Falcon Heavy went up.
I haven't seen any footage that good since
Now, just for those that any flat earthers are here, because there is a little bit of evidence that suggests maybe it's not a flat earth. I thought that was pretty cool. The earth is curved.
It was the thing on their Facebook page. It said the Flat Earth Society has members all around the globe.
I just know that they do accept that Mars is round because they can see it rotating through a telescope.
Yeah, that's right.
And I had to laugh at this one. It's full of stars. And the last, I have
Richmond Forward.
The last political voice here. He'd make the best Prime Minister of the world, I suspect. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right, so we've got time for Andrew. Now, just one important thing you didn't yet mention, Angelo, is the thing, we've got the new First Man movie coming out very shortly about Neil Armstrong. But there's going to be a live 1969 The Second Man stage show about Buzz Aldrin apparently in New York.
It's a Broadway.
It's a musical Broadway. Off Broadway.
A Broadway play.
Keep your eye on that. So what's happening here? We're plugging in Angelo.
Quick question though. There was a new cabinet announced. So who's our new minister? It's locked at the back of the cabinet.
It's not a major ministry.
So he's plugged in his laptop?
Right, I'm just connecting up my computer. It has some specialized software that is needed. Now, I'm going to give you a weather forecast.
You don't understand even talking.
Yes, I know, but I am the space.
Well, there are two here.
Yep.
That's the latest one. Well, let's try the next time. See if we can just make
But if you've got them, and you've got the one in the info, just see it.
Create a spacecraft.
Right, notes.
Basically, because they lower over the edge.
Weather forecast. Mainly sunny, with cloud developing late in the evening. 90% chance of rain in the evening with the cloud. and a maximum temperature of 25 Celsius in the weather forecast. What's one piece of essential information for many people that's been left out of that weather forecast?
Where it is.
So I can't hear you.
Location.
Which planet?
Location. And what time of day?
Oh, he's building something.
Well, I gave the whole day weather forecast.
Oh.
Yeah, okay. Well, the essential piece of information for many, many people was the wind. How fast will the wind be blowing? At what velocity? Okay, in what direction? Will it be steady or gusty? Now that is the hardest thing for the weather forecaster to predict. You know the wind comes from areas of high pressure, areas of low pressure. Using aircraft, you get, wherever the aircraft's flying, you get wind directions. With radius on balloons, again, for that spot where the balloon is launched and going up, you get the wind direction there. But for most of the world, you're completely lacking in any information about the wind. How are we going on the...
Well, it's reading it, but you've got to, I don't know what you want to do.
Let's start with this one. The video. Gotcha. Right. Thank you. Let's just leave it at that. From satellites, thank you for the microphone is there. From satellites, you can get a picture of the clouds and make an estimate of how fast the clouds are moving as to what the wind speed is. But the trouble is, as you've ever watched clouds, they often appear to be stationary but are forming and reforming and there's a wind blowing. And this cloud appears stationary or it doesn't move at the same speed as the wind. So again, you don't get reliable information from that, even using the satellites to watch the cloud motion. Satellites, again, can help with a radar thing called scatterometer. You send a radar beam down, and when it hits the ocean, if you're over the ocean that is, the amount of reflection you get back depends on the waves. If it's completely smooth, radar comes down and bounces off and just keeps on going and you get no signal back. That means it's calm. That means there's no wind. If the waves are small, you get a small backscatter. If you're larger waves, you get more and more backscatter. So you can make an estimate of wind speed over the ocean. But that only tells you the wind speed over the ocean, not over the land, and it also only tells you at the surface. The problem is, we need the weather forecast to tell us the winds at all sorts of altitudes. Hence, this satellite that was launched called ALICE, and if this works properly, I can press play down there, and this is going to be a little bit about this new satellite that was launched just a few days ago. For the first time, giving us that information we need about the winds. And we should have sound. Should have. That was the sound thing I played in the show. Oh, it's actually mine. Yeah, okay. So folks, at home I just plug it into my TV or plug it into my bigger monitor and it just works automatically. Bang. For some reason, when it gets into a strange place, the computer doesn't like it. Oh, let's forget the video. And we'll go on to the next part. Actually, I do need to put sound. Okay, so how is the satellite going to work? Answer? LiDAR. Now, LiDAR means light detection and ranging, which is like radar, which is radio detection and ranging. It's going to send a laser beam down, and particles in the air, almost down to the molecule size, will reflect that back. As a result, the signal comes back, and depending on what the particle in the air is doing, it will be Doppler shifted. Now, Doppler is an effect that you've all heard about, but probably never had explained to you. So I'm going to do a little bit of an explanation about how this works. How can life be so complicated? Oh.
Try the next one.
Okay. Let's get rid of the cups. We don't need a cup. We don't need that. We don't need that. I need this. Right. Where are we? I'm up here. Right. Go over there. And I think I had it open and working. I'll go back here again. So can I drag that across here? Oh, the cloud. This is easy all my time. Drag it across there once. Good. Right. Now, down here, we'll go first to this, and that one. This is something I adapted from something I did some years ago. Now, Doppler effect. Now, you may have noticed on the NASA website several weeks ago a thing which purported to be new, but in fact was quite old. Helio and astroseismology. You get pictures of the sun there. Well, how does it work? Little guys here tell me where to go. It's not working in my opinion. Now, the motions in the sun cause sound waves which travel through the sun, and they move, as pretty much shown in this graphic here. As a result, they cause the surface of the sun to rise and fall. That means that the light is shifted in colour. Again, due to this Doppler effect. Now, the animation is going to show you was going to explain all Doppler, so let's abandon all that and just give you an example. You've all heard the racing cars as they go past, or you've heard ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, ding dong, dong, as you're on a train going past, although you won't hear that much more often, so you won't hear that much more in the future if Andrews has his way and gets rid of all the railway crossings. Now, the SAA satellite has an instrument on it called the Michelson Doppler imager. Now, there are different modes of oscillation. There's one, and here's another one, and all these add up together to give you different frequencies. And these frequencies are well below the sound level that you can hear with your ear. And the result is there are various nodes and antinodes in the sun. They can be analysed and converted into sound. Now, the sound not working, I'm not going to play you those sounds, but it's a sort of a humming sort of sound, which we raise the frequency to what we can hear. Now, unfortunately, my major little demo here is not going to work. From the sun. Now this was recorded by SOHO way back in the 1990s, and yet NASA has posted on their website as if it's something new. And I did a bit of investigating. It turns out they have some interns at the summer camp there, and the interns found these sounds and made them into a film, and NASA put it up on their website, but forgot to mention to people that this is not new. Okay. That's where I'm going to get one more try. Alright, drag it, here we go. For some reason, it doesn't want to work on the screen. It works on the laptop, but not on the screen. Right, let's move on to our next thing. Yeah, I want to show all of those. Let's get on to some other space news then. We'll have to pretend we didn't see that. That's ALS there, and the laser coming down and detecting particles in the air and using Doppler shift able to work out where they're moving. Now, these particles are not visible to the naked eye, and they're going to feed directly into weather forecasts, mainly in Europe, but also around the world. Parker Solar Probe has been launched and is now on its way to Venus. Only going to take 6 weeks to reach Venus, and that's going to do the first of many gravity assists as it goes past. the program was run where you could put your name down and get your name on the probe. And here are some pickies of the instrument. Oops, I'm going to open it first, I suppose. So I'll just quickly go through these. That's the chip with your name on it. If you put your name on that probe, and how many of you did, by the way, here? Anyone? No? Oh yes, good. Michael did. So there's your name, Michael, going on, and my name as well. And so it looks like a little card you put into a camera or something like that, and it's been mounted on the side of the spacecraft. So there's the sort of proof that something was put on the spacecraft that's allegedly got your name on it. Right. Now, Hayabusa is doing some various things, and we'll just take a quickie at these things. Now that's a picture of Hayabusa spacecraft. And this is some of the images from the spacecraft. And what's interesting is that there's a picture from Hayabusa, but this is the interesting part here. They've got these various positions near the asteroid Ryugu. And they've got a position called home position, which is 20 kilometers away from the asteroid. And they can move to and fro towards and away from the asteroid. And so far they've been down to about 650 meters away from the asteroid. Here's a little graphic that the Japanese, they like the cartoony type pictures, and that's their mission logo. Here's the plans for where they're going to touch down. Now they haven't chosen the landing site yet, but they're working on these particular sites on Ryugu. Moving on to the Changi mission, again site selection for Changi, Chang'e 5. Yes?
They announced about 4 or 5 days ago which site they're going to go for.
They what?
They had announced which site they're going to land on.
The landing site?
Yeah.
Okay, yep, I didn't check today.
About 4 days ago.
Right.
We're going to have to wrap up pretty soon.
Right. And look, there's one last thing I'd like to draw your attention to. And that's this one. There is a bill before Parliament called the Space Activities Amendment Launches and Returns Bill for 2018. It was submitted to Parliament on the 30th of May, and it's now gone to the committees and is now under consideration. What I'm asking for is anyone who's got time to read this lemon thing, and
it got passed last week.
To do an analysis of it and come on the space show and talk about it.
No, it got passed last week.
Sorry?
It got passed last week.
Got passed last week. Good.
Last Monday.
Right.
But I'm still deciding which was Prime Minister.
So you can come and talk about it on the space show. Well, sorry my presentation's been a disaster. One, push the time, and two, the planned software doesn't work when transferred from this computer onto that screen. Alright, well, 9 o'clock, we're past 9 o'clock, we better go. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. Hopefully it's starting to get warmer in the next few months. Not sure what the program is next month, but it'll be no doubt packed with information for you. And we'll see you again. Thanks, Ashley and Michael for the work tonight, and Igor and Angelo for the presentation. And thank you for our special visitor from the state. Appreciate you being here tonight. And thank you again.